there's this intervention style called ecological momentary intervention. And it basically posits that if you take these things that you might learn in therapy, like a clinical learning, for example, and you chop up that hour-long conversation into bite-sized pieces, and then you deliver those pieces in non-clinical settings, like at school or at work, at home, it will actually help you integrate those learnings into your normal life. So rather than, like, when I started treatment, it was like I had my therapy over here and the rest of my life over here, not super integrated. And the whole idea behind EMI is that you're actually interrupting automatic negative thought with health education content. And over time, that changes your behavior. So I was like, what if we could do that, but with peers writing the content? So even to this day, even with all the AI tools out there, the one thing we say is like our messages are written by real people with firsthand lived experience overcoming mental health challenges. So even though we do use AI for some things, and I'm sure we will continue to, the one thing I never want to use AI for, I hope this doesn't age like milk, is I want to make sure that real people are writing the content, because that peer support base, like getting a message from someone who's been through it, is really powerful.
On this episode of TLC Connections, we're joined by Johnny Crowder, founder and CEO of Cope Notes, TEDx speaker, heavy metal frontman, and passionate mental health advocate. Johnny shares his remarkable journey and personal growth, from therapy to building a global mental health platform. Along the way, he reflects on how music became his first language of expression, why peer support drives his work, and how radical vulnerability can transform the way we lead, connect, and serve. This conversation is raw yet hopeful, offering powerful lessons for anyone navigating life's toughest challenges or serving those who are. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Welcome to TLC Connections, the podcast where educators, counselors, coaches, and community leaders come together to inspire change, one connection at a time.
Johnny, thank you so much for coming in.
This has been, people who are listening and watching don't know how long this has been in the works.
Yes.
Like an entire year, literally. So I'm really pumped to be here.
It has. In fact, I first saw you doing a keynote at a conference in, was it Nashville, Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
Or right outside of Nashville.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I knew immediately that I wanted to book you. And here we are almost a year later.
So much has changed in the last year of my life. Like right after that, my whole life fell apart. Like the day I got back from that trip.
All right, you got to tell me about that.
So it's been an extraordinary year for me.
Well,
It's put some hair on my chest for sure.
I do know a little bit about the flood, and you were affected by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Yeah, long story short, do you listen to country?
My wife loves country.
I
listen
don't-
to it if she's listening to it.
I don't listen to country, but now I relate to country music
Okay.
because I lost my home and my girlfriend and my
And your dog?
car and thank God I didn't lose the dog.
Wow.
But yeah, man, I lost my home in the hurricane.
Mm.
It was right after I got back from that. And then I had some band members quit, and it was just this I look back at that trip, and that was like the last moment that my life was normal, was when I saw you.
Wow.
I mean, literally the next day, was when all this stuff started happening. So I am blown away. You're like one of the people that I saw in the before times,
Wow.
before. And I look back at photos from that conference, and I'm like, oh, young Johnny.
Wow.
He had no idea what was coming for him. So it's been a really, the past year has taught me a lot, for sure.
Wow. So I want to unpack that a little bit later and talk about the last year, but I first want to go back in time a little bit. And you alluded to your band.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have quite the background: musician, entrepreneur, CEO, professional speaker, mental health advocate. I don't know where to start, but my interest is music. So tell us a little bit about music, how you developed a passion for that, and you're the lead man for a band, Prison.
Yes, sir.
And so talk a little bit about that.
Music has always been, it's funny, I'm a professional speaker now, because when I was younger, I couldn't figure out how to communicate. I
Right.
had real trouble telling people how I felt, but writing came naturally to me. So I really enjoyed writing poetry and stories and lyrics. So I've always loved writing, and I started playing guitar when I was 8. So sometimes I could you ever talk to a kid and they like don't know how to communicate? They're frustrated or they're sad or something, and they don't have the vocab for it.
Right.
But if they draw something or they paint something or they make something out of clay, it's like almost they're like, I feel like that. And that's what music has always been for me. Ever since I was a kid, was like,
Right.
I don't know how to tell you how I feel, but I know how to write a chord progression or a melody or a harmony that might evoke the similar feelings in you so that you can understand how I feel. So I started playing guitar when I was 8, played my first concert when I was 16. A lot of people don't know, but I didn't want to be a vocalist. I wanted to be a guitarist. And I tried to join a band on guitar, and they said, we don't need a guitarist. Our vocalist just quit.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to sing. So
Wow.
like my whole music career stemmed from that. So I started touring when I was 17, got signed to a record label when I was 19, and just toured full time until COVID, basically. So, and now we still play, not as often, but you know, I'm playing shows in a couple weeks. I was just in the studio. We put out a new song a couple days ago, so we're still active. But for most of my life, whether touring full time or not, music has still been like almost my primary communication method with the world around me.
What was the spark at 8 that got you into guitar?
I'd always been, ever since I was like 4 years old, I want to be a rock star. So you know how some kids like want to be a ninja?
Right.
You know, well, I did want to be a ninja actually. But my dream ever since I was a little kid, like ever since I heard music, like my mom had actually on my fingers, I have the buttons from a cassette player.
Right.
And they're from my mom's cassette player. She had 2 cassettes, dude.
Okay.
That I could listen to. She had a cassette player that she let me use, and there was an Aerosmith Greatest Hits one, and then there was a Beverly Hills Ninja soundtrack.
Okay. Was that Farley? Was that?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Which like God knows why those were the 2 that she had, but those were the ones that she had, and I listened to them obsessively. And then I got like one of those first act Walmart guitars when I was 8. And I just wouldn't put it down. I didn't know how to play. I just would take it with me everywhere and just strum open strings. And it's like since I was born, I wanted to make music, even when I didn't know how.
You said obviously you're a busy guy, so you still do it, but just not as often. Are you doing it as often as you like, or you found like you've struck the right balance?
No, I wish, man, in a perfect world, I could play guitar every single day. I would sing every single day. I was the last person to expect, like I tell people like my plan A was to be a rock star. I had no plan B. So the fact that I'm like a CEO and a public speaker, it's like none of this was on my roadmap. I really, really wanted to focus on music. And what I think is cool is that I view it all as the same thing. Like it's all self-expression and mental health advocacy and trying to uplift other people through creativity. So whether I'm like in a boardroom or on a stage speaking or on a stage beating my chest and screaming my lungs out or in a studio playing guitar, it's all, to me, it's like the exact same mission, but in different vehicles.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way. Let's go a little bit deeper on the CEO role. So tell us about Cope Notes.
The simplest way to describe it is daily text messages that improve mental and emotional health.
Okay.
So we do that for youth and adults. We do it for huge organizations and then like really tiny ones like Ultimate Frisbee teams and families. And we do it for people in 97 countries all over the world.
Wow.
So we are very big. I always tell people my thumbs are tired as if I'm the person sending all the messages. But yeah, we're 7.5 years in revenue, and it's 100 times bigger than I ever.
Wow. So it's a subscription model through like an app, or
no app. You don't need a smartphone.
Just go
to
a website,
need a data
sign
plan. You don't need internet access. It's just and it's anonymous. So literally you type your phone number into a form and press submit, and we can text you.
Wow.
And then you feel better.
Wow. That's fascinating. Where'd that idea come from?
I went to school for psychology, and I was learning about peer support, like the power of using your lived experience with some type of mental health challenge to support other people. And I went to school to become a clinician. And then when I found out about peer support, I'm like, screw becoming a clinician. I don't want to be in school for another decade. Like,
Right.
I want to use my lived experience. And look at me, I'm like a t-shirt and jeans kind of dude. So
Right.
like, I'm not trying to spend $750,000 to wear a lab coat. I'm
Right.
generalizing, but I was like, man, I want to just sit down with someone and be like, dude, that sucks. I remember going through that.
Right.
That's just more my speed. And I, at the time, was also learning about different interventions I was learning about like abnormal psychology and neuroscience and like how and why the brain changes.
Right.
And there's this intervention style called ecological momentary intervention.
Okay.
And it basically posits that if you take these things that you might learn in therapy, like a clinical learning, for example, and you chop up that hour-long conversation into bite-sized pieces, and then you deliver those pieces in non-clinical settings, like at school or at work, at home, it will actually help you integrate those learnings into your normal life. So rather than, like when I started treatment, it was like I had my therapy over here and the rest of my life over here,
Right.
not super integrated. And the whole idea behind EMI is that you're actually interrupting automatic negative thought with health education content. And over time, that changes your behavior. So I was like, what if we could do that, but with peers writing the content? So even to this day, even with all the AI tools out there, the one thing we say is like our messages are written by real people with firsthand lived experience overcoming mental health challenges. So even though we do use AI for some things, and I'm sure we will continue to, the one thing I never want to use AI for, I hope this doesn't age like milk, is I want to make sure that real people are writing the content, because that peer support base, like getting a message from someone who's been through it, is really powerful.
But you mentioned peer support, and so I noticed that you're a certified recovery peer specialist. For the listeners, and describe what that is. What is a CRS, and talk about.
It's the easiest way to describe that is, you were physically abused by your parents? Me too. Tell me about it. Yeah. And you're literally talking to somebody. Like when I remember when I first started treatment, I would sit down and I'd glare at my psychologist. I just think, look at you. Pretty little Asian lady, maybe 50 years old. I was like, you probably drive a Mercedes. I bet your husband's so handsome and your kids get great grades. Like you wouldn't last 1 millisecond in my neighborhood. Like you have no idea what my life has been like. Look at you with your degree on the wall. And also I was 16, so I had a real attitude.
Right.
Very judgy, if you notice. Yeah. But I remember when I first started engaging with peer support, I went to a peer support group and I said something about hallucinating. I used to hallucinate wolves. I would like see wolves in the hallway of my home.
It's interesting. I showed you all those wolves in my office.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay,
yeah. And it did not trigger me. So go God. Recovery works. I remember I said something like that in the support group, and I heard this guy go, yup. And I was like, what? And it was like in that moment, I felt so understood. It was like all my guards went down. I'm like, you're telling me you don't think I'm some crazy like nut job? You understand what I'm talking about? And this guy didn't hallucinate wolves, but he had experienced hallucinations before. And it immediately made me feel safe. I was like, okay, this guy's not judging me. Right. I'm talking to someone who gets what I'm going through. And that the power of peer support is the safety that you feel in sharing, because you're sharing rather than someone looking at you and sort of like going, and furrowing their brow and writing down notes or something, like what people think of when they think of like disclosing to a therapist, for example. You're talking to someone who's like smiling, going, oh yeah, dude, I remember that. And that was really brutal. And I'm so sorry you had to go through it, but I'm so relieved somebody else knows what I'm talking about. There's power in that. Yeah.
And back to Cope Notes for a minute then. That's a peer system then, where are peers, other people contributing to that?
Yeah, the idea is that every message that we send is written by a real peer with lived experience.
Got it.
Then it's reviewed by clinicians to make sure that it's based on proven psychology.
Got it.
So we're not going to text you like,
I got you.
Smile.
So not everyone's texting. It all comes through a funnel where they're processed and then officially sent out.
Big old library created by peers then reviewed by clinicians, coded to proven psychological principles. So we got to make sure it's like legit. And then we send those at random intervals. So no two people ever get the same message at the same time. So everyone has their own unique text sequence with Cope Notes. So the idea, people think it's like, oh, is it like a chat with a therapist? It's not.
Right.
We are delivering these little 5 and 10 second interventions, like micro interventions to your day.
Wow.
And that interrupts whatever you were thinking about and helps your brain form new neural pathways.
And so the subscription model, is it business to business? You're trying to target companies, or is these individuals that can pay also?
I will tell you that I deserve very little credit for the success of Cope Notes as a business model, because my idea was literally, when we started, it was me texting people individually from my phone with my thumbs. So I was like, I'll help my friends or something. And then eventually it grew to now we work with a lot of school districts and businesses and hospital systems and governments and stuff. So what happened was we would help somebody individually, and then they'd say, well, I want to get a subscription for my wife. I think she'd really appreciate this. And then that person's wife goes, well, I'm a teacher at a school district. I think all the students should get it. And then so we do a school district deal. And then a lot of people, the employees who work there were like, well, if the students get it, then I think the teachers should get it. And then the teachers get it. And then they say, I'm going to get a subscription for my husband. And then they get one for them. And then, so it's like this cycle that, maybe their husband works at the county. And then we do a government deal. So it's really been this sort of like magical flywheel word of mouth where like people keep telling
you
people.
You said 90
about
plus
it.
countries.
97.
Wow.
Which is extraordinary because we haven't even launched a Spanish-speaking version yet.
Right.
It's launching pretty soon, maybe by the time this airs. But 97, I didn't even know there were English speakers in 97 countries, honestly.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I know one of your keynotes. So I want to transition now into yet another role that you have, which is professional speaker.
Bring it on.
And so you have 4 keynotes. One of those is about the accidental entrepreneur, which I'm assuming is about Cope Notes and how that took off.
Yeah, man.
But talk, and then also you've done a couple TEDx talks. So one of the TEDx talks has over 1 million. And so you've spoken to millions, plural. So how did you get it? What came first? So music came first, and then Cope Notes, and then speaker, or speaker, then Cope Notes?
So I started speaking when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
And it is hard to get booked as a speaker at 18 years old. So I did it. I spoke for free, no pay, for 7 years. So like towards the end of that first 7 years of doing it, so I was like in my mid-20s, I remember someone might like give me a $50 Shell gift card to help pay for some of the gas, or they might be like, oh, well, we can comp your hotel stay. And I remember being like, I'm a paid speaker. Like they paid for my hotel. So it was a passion for me because I cared about advocacy. That's what really mattered. I didn't see a future of me being like a professional public speaker until probably my mid-20s. But when I started, I was literally participating in support groups. Then I would try to facilitate a support group. Then I would do, like, if they would need someone with lived experience with a mental health condition to come to be a part of a panel for clinicians so they could learn about what the diagnosis, like the experience is like. So it started like that, where I was working with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, volunteering, and I'd go, they'd be like, we need you to come speak for a support group. And I'm like, great. And I'd go and, GT, there's like 6 people there. Right. And I'm like, I got a speaking gig. And I would speak just in a room like this size to a bunch of parents. And then, the next week they're like, hey, we're doing a program at a middle school. Would you come and speak to middle school students? And I'm like, you bet. So I'll literally speak to 7 classes, like every single period. And then it just slowly grew from there. Yeah. And I would pester. I'd see an event pop up and I'd email the person, call the person like, hey, can I speak for 5 minutes during the agenda just about mental health? Like that was my real passion. And I think it got to a point where enough people who made decisions were like, I swear to God, I've seen that guy speak 40 times.
Do you remember a specific talk that you gave or a specific event and you looked back on, it's like, oh, wow, I'm a speaker, professional speaker, like a big crowd or
Yeah,
a reaction?
there was one in particular. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I
Okay.
will tell part of the story. It was when I agreed to speak. I remember I was trying to I had been speaking for years and years. I had done it over 100 times, maybe a couple hundred times I had spoken, and still wasn't getting compensated at all. And I remember I had to work up the courage. I was like, I want to ask. I had gotten paid maybe in gift cards before, but I had never gotten paid money to
right.
speak. And I was like, man, and I was touring. So touring musicians, if anyone's wondering at home, make $5 a day. I mean, it's unbelievable how little is left over for the artist at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I was really struggling for money. And I'm like, well, I'm really good at speaking. I've been doing it for years. I got asked to speak at this event coming up. I'm going to ask to be paid. And so I was like, I want to make a really crazy ask. This was maybe 24. So I've been doing it for 6 years or something.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to ask for $1,000. I'm going to ask for $1,000. And it was a big fundraiser, big fancy place. And they were like, best we can do is 300. And I'm like, amazing. And I remember I got paid $300 to speak at that event. And I was the headliner above some fairly well-known, there was an NFL Hall of Famer there. And I was the closing keynote of this whole thing. And I was like, am I legit? And by the way, I found out how much those people got paid. Way more than me.
Yeah.
Way more than me. But I remember thinking they put me last on purpose because they've seen me before. They know I'm good. And it made me feel, it was the first time where I was in a big room speaking with people who were much more established than me, and I was compensated. It made me feel like, if I've been doing this for 6 years and I just got paid $300 to do it, I wonder if I could get paid $300 to do it again. And that kind of started I was already interested in being a professional speaker at that point, but I didn't think I could. Do you know what I'm saying? And then that night, I remember it was in Tampa. I remember the place. I ride my bike past it all the time. I remember thinking that place, I remember getting off stage and being like, I think I can do this.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of times that, lived experience. You've alluded to, the medication. You're pretty open about the mental health. In fact, when I first heard you in Tennessee, you shared some of that. What would you like to how much of that would you like to share now about kind of the reasons for your mental health advocacy? So how much of that do you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I always tell people the reason I feel confident, I spent most of my life not feeling confident, very self-conscious, unconfident. I feel very confident now, and I believe confidence comes from how much of your dirty laundry you are hiding. And everything you could ever judge me for is on Wikipedia. So I feel very comfortable sharing it because it's there's no secrets anymore. So the brief version of my history is I grew up in an abusive home, low income, and surrounded by people were using drugs and alcohol around me. And I lived with very severe schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. I was self-harming. I had very severe obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD from abuse. It was the perfect storm of all bullied in school. I mean, if you can name, I had acne. Maybe that's the worst one out of everything I said.
Yeah, that was traumatic for me.
Yeah. So I just had a ton of challenges, and I didn't want to tell anybody about it because I was already so self-conscious about all these other things anyway. I'd be self-conscious if I spilled juice on my pants. I'd be like, oh no, people are going to think, if you remember being a kid and you spill something on your jeans, you're like, people are going to think I peed my pants. If I'm self-conscious about that, I'm going to be self-conscious about self-harm or hallucinations or whatever. So in my head, I was like if I can just look normal, I can just try to shave my face and iron my shirts and just try to look put together enough that people don't ask me how I'm doing, then maybe I can coast through. And I had so much self-stigma, like I was judging myself. And I had a genuine belief that nobody could help me. I was like, yeah, I'm sure medication helps some people, but it won't help me. By the way, without having tried any. So it's like I'm talking about before I even started treatment. Yeah, I'm sure therapy helps some people, but I'm too uniquely screwed up for that to apply to me. I think a lot of people think that.
Right.
So you could show them a stat like for Cope Notes, 86% of people who use Cope Notes report improved mental health within 30 days. Okay. 86%. It's a very high percentage. Yep. My whole life, I had the attitude, I'm part of the 14%. I don't even have to try it to know that it won't help me. That was my attitude towards everything. So if you showed me any stat, oh, therapy helps this many people, I'm like, well, I'm part of the group that it won't help. So I had all this resistance.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I care so much about doing advocacy is because I want to speak to people who feel like I did and go like, buddy, I love you, but you're so wrong. Like you're so wrong. You can't possibly be the first. What I tell people is like, I believe you if you say that one thing, like you took a medication and didn't help. I believe that. I don't believe that there's nothing that can help you.
Right.
I disagree with you. I don't believe you. And I empathize with the frustration that it takes to find that thing. I had to try multiple medications. I had to try multiple therapists. I've read a bunch of different books. So like the trial and error is exhausting, but I want to snap people out of this idea that like, oh, that's for other people.
Right.
It's like, no, it's for you too.
Yeah. Radical vulnerability is one of the keynotes, and I resonated with that one for a couple of reasons. One is that it speaks to, or at least in the description, it talked about the C-suite and talked about the need for the CEO in particular to be authentic, to open up. And as some people say, it's lonely at the top. CEOs are not known for sharing or oversharing, and they can hold and bottle up a lot. So anyway, what was the motivation behind that particular keynote?
Yeah, I have a comment on what I hear the kickback around from CEOs, and then I'll share the inspiration. So sometimes I'll hear CEOs be like, well, I'm not trying to share because then everyone's going to know everything about my personal life. And then they're like, well, once I share that, then I'm going to share all this other stuff. And to me, it's the same argument as I remember I was like encouraging my sister to go to the gym, and she's like, I don't want to become like this huge buff person. I'm like, I don't think you will. Like, I don't think you know what it requires to become, like you would have to change almost everything about your life to become like that. You don't get, because she was like looking at these women online who are like bodybuilders. And I'm like, these people wake up at 4 a.m. to eat 3 chicken breasts. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they take injectable hormones just to stay ahead of, like they're spending 3 hours a day in the gym. They're going twice a day. They have 2 separate personal trainers and a nutritionist. Like I don't think any of these women fell backwards into like being super swole. And I tell CEOs like, yeah, I don't think there's a danger of you becoming this like kumbaya, like you go to the office barefoot and like this. I don't think that's just gonna happen to you. So I think it's sort of it makes me laugh when people are like, oh, I don't want to become that. And I'm like, something tells me that you won't. Like if that's not something you actively want, it probably won't accidentally happen. But I tell people like there's a story that I tell in that keynote about me wanting to maintain a professional image in front of my staff, and my employees are older than me. So, and this has been the case for most of my career. So I had it in my head like, well, they already think I'm some little kid who has no idea what he's doing. So especially in my 20s. So I remember being like, well, I need to come across like I have it all together. They need like a leader with a stiff upper lip. And I remember one time I was having a family emergency, and one of my staff on an all hands meeting asked me, I have a bad poker face, so you can tell how I feel all of the time. which is sometimes a blessing because it forces me to be honest, but sometimes it's really inconvenient.
Right.
And I was on the team meeting, and one of my team members asked me a now famous question in the Cope Notes ecosystem. Nobody asked me how I'm doing anymore because they know I can't just go, fine, how are you? I can't do it. I have like an inability to do it. So now if we have a new employee and they ask me, oh, good morning, Johnny, how are you? All the other employees go, oh my Lord, they don't know yet. You're not supposed to ask them that because I'll tell the truth.
Right.
And I started crying, and it was not on purpose. It was just, I was literally that day, and I was like on the phone with hospitals about a family member that I was really concerned about. We didn't know if they were going to be okay. So I was like, I just started bawling. And then I was like, anyway, let's do the meeting agenda now. And I was like so embarrassed. I'm like, I can't believe I just burst out crying. And I didn't sob for like a half hour. You know, it was like I cried and my team saw me cry. And then I was like, I need to get it together because we have to do this meeting.
Right.
So we hang up the meeting. It was on Zoom. We hang up and I'm like, there it goes. All my credibility, all my authority. I'm sure my whole staff is going to quit. They're going to start a group chat separate from me and say, we need to get out of here. This guy's not even emotionally stable enough to deal with a family emergency. Right. How's he going to run a company? And instead, I got an individual message, not in a group channel, but an individual message from every single employee that was on the call privately. And each one said either, I remember going through something like that and it was so painful and scary, or I've never been through something like that. And I can only imagine how much you're going, like how much you're having to deal with right now. Or people saying, if you need me to take that one thing tomorrow off your plate so you can handle this, don't worry about it. Like everybody was compassionate, everybody. And from that day forward, we felt like this cultural shift where it was like people felt safe to share because I did it. And I didn't mean to. So I wasn't like, on this Zoom meeting, I'm going to cry and then it's going to make everyone feel comfortable. No, I just accidentally started crying. And from then on, people will share stuff in a team meeting now that I'm like, there's no way they would have done that if I didn't do it first. And I think CEOs have an opportunity to lead by example. Yeah. And a lot of times I see CEOs asking people to do things that they don't do themselves. Yep. And I think, man, your authority is not in you looking like your life is put together. Your authority is in you having done it before. So like if you have picked up trash around the office and then you ask a janitor, oh, can you please check this corner? Because when I was picking up trash, I noticed that there was some trash in this corner. Right. You're saying, I've done your job. I remember that. Right. And so I'm speaking from that experience. And so if you're asking your employees, be open and share with each other. And I want to promote a healthy culture of sharing and authenticity and vulnerability. It's like, brother, people are going to listen to you not because of your title, but because they've seen you model it, you know? Yeah,
what you're talking about is a lot of the tenets of what organizational leadership people would call servant leadership. And that kind of gets me into my last question. You're pretty open about your faith. For those of you who are watching, I see a cross on your necklace, but also a tattoo amongst your many tattoos. And so talk a little bit about faith. Has it always been a part of your foundation, or did it come to you through like your healing journey?
Definitely not always there. Yeah. So for people who know like Johnny Crowder lore, I toured in like a satanic death metal band for like a long time. So like our merchandise had pentagrams on it, and it was like literally some of the lyrics. I look back and I'm like, man, I wrote that. And then I toured around screaming it at people. So yeah, I was not a big Jesus person for most of my life, and yeah, he's the best CEO ever. Like I learned so many things from like the way that he conducted his life, and I try to implement that in the way I lead. But I think that there was something that happened for me that was really important in I guess in my recovery. I was on tour. It was 2016, and this was like a turning point for me. We were in Nashville, actually, funny,
Okay.
which was where we met for people
Right.
who don't know that lore.
Yeah.
And we had an off day. It was February 29th, 2016.
Okay.
So it was like the leap day.
Right.
And I joke around that like God made a whole extra day just so that this interaction could happen. We had an off day, which means you're not performing.
Right.
And a friend of mine was like, hey, come visit me. Here's the address. And I was like, cool. So I went to go visit her. She had worked at this venue called Rocketown in Nashville that I had played when I was like 17 years old or something. So I'd known her for a long time. And so she sends me an address, and dude, this story is crazy. So I show up, and it's a church, and I'm like, this is a trap. Like, I need to leave as soon as possible. And we're on tour. We were on tour with a band. We had just toured with a band called Aborted.
Mm.
So I had this hoodie on that said Aborted really big, death metal. And then it had upside down cross pentagram, like all across the sleeves. And I walk in, I'm like, oh my Lord, what is going to happen in here? Like, I'm going to burn up, or they're going to kick me out.
Mm.
And I walk in, and they were teaching about the Pharisees, which were like the religious leaders of the time. And the Pharisees were angry at Jesus because Jesus wasn't being religious enough. He was like, we got to love everybody. And the Pharisees were like, no, you're not following the rules. And then I was like, wait a second. I thought Jesus, his whole thing was like wagging his finger at people and saying they're not following the rules and they're going to burn in hell. And then I was like, maybe I should actually read about this because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. And that was like a really important, it was a very humbling experience because I was going my whole life judging the idea of God based on what I saw Christians do. And it's sort of like saying, like you said, you're an NC State fan. Mm-hmm. So like imagine getting cut off in traffic by someone with an NC State bumper sticker and going, I'm never going to that school. Right. Screw that school. Right. To you and me, that sounds ridiculous. To most people listening, they're like, that logic, that math doesn't math. Right. But that's what we do with faith. And I realized I had spent a quarter century going like, well, I'm never going there, without actually looking into it for myself.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story. Last question is, I want to ask you a question that you said your employees have learned not to ask.
Oh no! You better make some. You better get comfy, GT.
So I'm going to ask how you're doing, but I'm going to do it in the context of I'm going to tie it back to the very beginning. Yeah. When you said it's been a rough year. So, and I did say I wanted to unpack that a little bit more, but we don't have the time. But just tell me, how are you doing? How have you navigated the last year, and how are you doing right now?
Yeah, man. We just put out a song about this a couple of days ago. I've been in PTSD treatment since last year. And keep in mind, at the time, like before all this happened, my life was killer. It was like I finally finished like a decade and a half of all of this super heavy lifting, like healing through all this junk and doing all my work. And I was like, I freaking made it out to the other side. And then boom, like my life exploded. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm going back to PTSD treatment after all this stuff. And I've spent the last year in it and reading a lot, praying a lot, and extremely intentional about healing. Like I always tell people recovery is a full-time job. Like they look at me and they're like, a lot of people are like, well, there's no way you don't have bipolar, or you don't have schizophrenia, or you don't have OCD. And it's like, dude, I had to like hype myself up to shake your hand. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't know that, but I'm doing this work all the time. When I put on deodorant, I count how many swipes of deodorant I put under each arm, and I purposely put a different amount under each arm to like disrupt my OCD preferences. So like I'm doing this stuff all the time, and it's worth it. It's the most important work you'll ever do. Right. So I'm feeling better now than I did a year ago. And it has not been linear, by the way. Right. Like if you check back with me in February, I'm like, dude, I'm basically over all this stuff. March, boom, like literally, it's like a whole new level of loss and grief and letting go of. I mean, in the storm, I lost my entire home. It's like everything I own, like my, couch gone, bed gone, all sorts of stuff that you take for granted. Like, oh, that's my frying pan. Not anymore. Like the building collapsed, GT. Like it wasn't like you could go in and dust off some stuff. I mean, it's like the roof was ripped off and the ceiling caved in and the walls collapsed. Like there's, this was such a one moment your life is this way, the next moment it wasn't situation. And making peace with that has taken every ounce of energy I've had over the last year. And I feel better now. I don't feel normal. I feel like I am approaching a new normal. Even in the last couple weeks, my therapist said that I've moved out of rumination, which I thought rumination meant thinking about something a lot. Right. But clinically speaking, rumination means intellectualizing and trying to problem solve. Like, if only I had picked a different apartment unit, or stuff like that. Like sort of problem solving, preventative type. And my therapist was like, Johnny, it sounds like you're finally out of rumination and you're entering grief. Right. And she's like, so you're going to feel really sad and that's going to be great. Like you should be happy that you're sad. So as strange as that sounds, I'm not on the other side, but I feel now that I'm no longer, I used to say, well, I'm going through a breakup or I'm in the process of moving. And it's like, dude, you moved. Yeah. Like, and I still don't have a permanent address. So like, I'm still in some ways in the middle, but I'm a lot closer to being on the other side than I was. And I think most importantly, I see a vision of, there's a verse about God wanting us to have hope in a future. And I felt what was so hard to explain to people about losing my, who I thought was going to be my wife and my home and these band members I've worked with I've known for 20 years, like losing all this stuff all at once. It felt like I lost my hope in my future. And it's starting to feel like I can see a new hope and a new vision of a future that doesn't include these people and places and things that I love. I still love these people and places and things. But I'm starting to see a vision of my future that doesn't include that. And I'm starting to be okay with that being the reality.
Wow. Thank you for sharing and being radically vulnerable with us.
I can't not. You can ask any of my employees.
All right.
TLC Connections is supported in part by the Lincoln Center for Family and Youth. Through education, counseling, coaching, and consulting, we empower people to make positive choices, meaningful connections, and transformational change. To learn more, visit thelincolncenter.com.